This episode of the Jesse T Show is brought to you by 46 and 2 Wealth Partners. This year, many people have lots of money questions. Finding the right information can be tough, and more importantly, finding someone that you like and have confidence in is even tougher. If you'd like to keep more of your money, and more importantly, if you'd like to stop trading time for money and live the life you deserve, contact 46 and 2 Wealth Partners today. Right now, Jesse T Show listeners will receive a free 15-minute phone call that will leave you with at least one idea on how to keep or make more money. Text promo code Jesse T Show to phone number 202-301-4503. Amanda, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Excited.
Great to have you. I hear that you're quarantined in probably one of the best places to be quarantined, self kind of quarantine. Where are you at in the world right now?
I am in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. So it's a little taste of paradise.
So this was because you have a significant other that, is international, and that's like Switzerland, so to speak. You could meet in Switzerland.
Yes, exactly. If you could call Cabo San Lucas, Switzerland.
Yeah.
My boyfriend, who I did meet at a poker table, he's an Irish citizen. I'm an American citizen. And given all the coronavirus craziness, we needed a place we could both, live together and prosper and be fruitful and multiply.
Gotta find a way to let love lead, right? And be together.
Yeah.
And screw this.
Absolutely. And it's a great place. So silver lining.
Oh yeah. And how long have you been stranded in Cabo?
Stranded, right? Exactly. Our stuckcation. About 2 weeks now. We just moved into an apartment here. We signed a 6-month lease. So we'll be stationed here for a little while.
That's awesome. What a great, just a life move, right? Like just like this beautiful transition and beautiful, adapting to the world's environment and saying, you know what, it's not going to get us down. We're going to go live our best lives.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very
Absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely.
You have an amazing story, and you and I connected through a mutual friend. And I wanted to, if I could share your story with the world a little bit more, get you in front of the few people that may have not heard it. But I want, just for some context, tell the world a little bit about kind of your backstory, who you are, what you've done, and what you're doing today.
So I started as a political writer. I was living in Washington, D.C. I was working for a quasi think tank, and I was specializing in Middle Eastern foreign policy. I'd written for the Wall Street Journal. I'd written for the Huffington Post, LA Times. And my job was to be a newsletter writer for 30,000 subscribers. And basically, I was converting all of this really dense, complicated current events news stories into bullet points. And I did some of their Twitter stuff. I was like the headline girl, making headlines. Sorry, that's not very clear. I was crunching stories into headlines and into bite-sized pieces. And I was really I saw myself as someone who made politics simple. And then they opened up this casino right outside of DC, the MGM Casino, and I discovered poker, and I fell in love with poker, but I was horrible at it. I went there and I thought I was going to be this rock star poker player like my dad, and I got my backside handed to me. And so I created this new dream. I wanted to, part one, figure out how to play poker, and then 2, do poker made simple. So I would really, in a sentence, I would do politics made simple, turn into poker made simple. And I did end up, in a way, mastering the game. And earlier this year, I published the book, A Girl's Guide to Poker, with the world's largest poker book publisher.
Wow. What a journey. That's it's interesting to go from the political landscape and writing in that world to being a professional poker player. I don't know, if there's a normal transition from either one, but that just sounds pretty unique and pretty badass. So talk a little bit about the, the political kind of journalism and all this stuff that you were doing. How did you fall into that? What are some of the interesting things that you worked on, or even, did you see anything that maybe, changed your worldview?
Sure. There was one piece that really, really stood out to me. We were covering a lot about Syria. It's very depressing, very heavy. And there was an article in the Washington Post, And it was written by two doctors. And they said, we are going to be writing here every day. And the day we stop writing means we have died. And I remember they published like one or two more pieces. And my job as the newsletter writer was to kind of point people to this piece. And then I remember by Friday, it was just absolute silence. And that really, really, really stuck with me and was very hard for me to process. And I think I got very depressed working in politics. So by the time that I entered poker, it was kind of like this F it moment. You know, it was like I had seen people who had master's degrees, spoke multiple languages, who were like struggling living in a basement apartment, you know, with a bunch of roommates, feeling like they weren't not making any difference in the world. And I was like, these are some of the smartest people I've ever met in my whole life. And so I was like, let me, then I discovered poker, and it's like, you know, you enter a $120 tournament, and then by the end of the day, you made like $2,000. And it felt like action and exciting. And there was also, I think, I was 23 years old at the time. And it was so frustrating working in the nonprofit world, not feeling like I had a voice and not feeling like what I did, said, mattered, like anyone was listening. And whatever side you work on in politics, I think there's this desire to be like, just listen to me and then everything will be better. Just hear me out, right? Just listen, just listen, just listen, just listen. And when I played poker, you know, people listen when you're betting chips. That kind of speaks for you. And I got to kind of exercise aggression, and I got to feel like all of the decisions I made were important. They have this expression when you're playing a poker tournament. They say you're playing for your tournament life. Because if you're eliminated from the tournament, you're eliminated. When you're out, you're out. So every decision is, in a sense, life and death. Whereas I was in my day job dealing with real life and death decisions, but feeling like there was no rhyme or reason to anything. And so I liked poker. Poker was a way of kind of saying, hey, if you want to make decisions, let's organize it all. Let's kind of, here's what you look at. Here's what, you know, you can, even though I'm not a math person, I liked the centering of it. I liked that there were systems, there was structure, there was all of a sudden the world made sense in this little contained microcosm of life.
I don't know why this is coming to mind. Do you have a favorite poker movie?
You know, there's this one called The Grand, I think.
Okay.
It's something like that. It's got Woody Harrelson, and it's like, it's a little known poker movie, but it's like a mockumentary.
Okay.
And you know, I kind of like came of age with like Napoleon Dynamite, like deadpan. Yeah, right. So it's like, it's kind of what's that movie with the rock stars? Spinal Tap.
Yes.
It's like Spinal Tap but poker.
Okay.
So it's yeah, I like that movie a lot. Whenever I play poker, a lot of times people will call me Molly, like Molly's Game.
Okay. Oh yeah, I've seen that. That's actually a really good movie.
Yeah, I get nicknamed that. And I do teach poker groups and clients and private lessons. And a lot of people saw Molly's Game. And even though that movie's not really about poker, then they were like, hey, can you teach us poker? So it's gotten me.
She was just brilliant. She was brilliant at what she was doing. And it was incredible. She was, like you said, like she was controlling her atmosphere, her environment. She was controlling people, which we'll talk about in a little bit with, you know, some of your stuff you do, all the intricacies of the game. But so
absolutely.
How did you make the leap to go from kind of this two different worlds, honestly? I mean, there may be some overlay with maybe in the sense of like some things, but they really are two different worlds. Like, how did you make that leap when you told yourself and you said, fuck it? Like, what was that catalyst? What had built up to that moment? And what was the knowing of poker that you had at that point before you stepped into it? Like just kind of that context.
Sure. It wasn't a decision that was really made for me. So after the election, my department lost funding and we were all laid off. Our job was we were fact checkers for the State Department press briefings. And then under the Trump administration, there were no State Department press briefings. So thus the research department was gone. And this was probably like a month or so into when I started playing poker.
Okay.
And so I kind of took a lot of my energy and I started studying the game. And 3 months later, I entered my first poker tournament and I won first place. And then 3 months after that, I became the number 7 highest ranked tournament player at the MGM casino. And a few months later, I signed a book deal, the world's largest poker book publisher. So it kind of, I really, really dove into it. I remember someone asked me, how long have you been playing poker? And I was just like I said, about 2 months. And the dealer goes, straight? Because I was there every day.
Let me ask you this. So how do you, and then this can translate to people that want to learn, because, I've always had once in a while, I'll get this hit with this interest, whether it's buddies that ask me that want to play poker and I don't know what the hell I'm doing, or if it's just, I see something, I'm like, maybe I would learn how to do that, but I don't want to learn how to lose money. I'm a wealth manager by trade. My goal is to grow, make money, help others make money, all that stuff. And a part of my soul is in keeping money. So losing money is not, and obviously you got to kind of make your bones, so to speak. So how did you go from never really, I know you said your dad, what kind of exposure did you have with your dad playing poker? And how did you go from that to your very first hand? And how did you learn so fast that within 2 to 3 months you were at a whole different place?
Sure. My dad played to kind of get by in college. And so when I was growing up, sometimes he'd go play poker, and he is a winning recreational player, as we call it, which is actually a lot less common than some people would think.
Okay.
He's also a major math guy. He used to be an accountant.
He's the number side. You and I had talked.
Number side, yeah. I was more the writer side. I flunked 8th grade algebra, mental math never really came that quickly to me. But I was good at memorizing things. And so I didn't know how to calculate the percentages in a hand, but I made a bunch of flashcards. And I made about 180 flashcards.
What was on the flashcards?
On the flashcards, they would be which 2 cards do you play in which seat of the table?
Wow. And
I color coded them. I went to Staples. I got stickers, and I would just drill myself for an hour. And so if you know which cards to play, it makes it a lot easier. A lot of people think that poker is about, so many factors like bluffs and this and that and the other thing. A lot of it is just you play good cards, you're going to set yourself up for success.
That's the system side of it. That's the tried and true.
Yes.
You could fall back on that when anything else fails.
When anything else fails. Exactly. Yeah. So it was, especially when there was so much going on in my life about both my circumstances, my job, and then also having dealt with reading about what's going on in the Syrian prisons. It was nice to be able to just focus on, Queen Jack. Is this a good hand? Is this not? It was very, very therapeutic in a way for me. And it was funny because what inspired the book is I was I'm going to get a poker book and I'm going to learn how to play poker. I called 3 different bookstores in Washington, D.C., and they all thought I was crazy. That is not, they're, and I was gosh, this is hard. So I had to find, I Ubered 45 minutes away to a strip mall in Virginia, because that was the only place that had 2 basic remedial poker books.
Wow.
And I get poker books. Yeah.
They couldn't ship them to you, or you just couldn't wait?
I couldn't wait. I'm impatient. And I also want to be able to see them too a little bit, read the cover. And I couldn't really understand a word, at all.
What was some of the things that were up in there that just jargon that didn't make sense to you?
Poker language is very, very dense. It's like learning a different language. So the way I could describe a hand is I raise from under the gun, the cutoff called, small blind defends, flop is 2, 3, 4 rainbow. I have a gutter to the wheel draw. So I see bet and barreled off when he rivered a backdoor flush.
Which to me, this all sounds like, gibberish. I don't know what the hell
it's gibberish,
I know
right?
some of it,
And just imagine that with like very, very, very long form math percentages at the same time. And I was like, what? Which was what inspired me to be in politics, because I remember I was in college and I saw a protest about Middle Eastern stuff. And I tried asking someone what was going on, and they turned to me and they said, it's complicated. And then I asked the next person and they said, it's complicated. And I was so frustrated because I just saw all these people were clearly so passionate and no one could just give me the bottom line. So then I decided to major in that policy. And I was like, at the time I kind of set a mission, I'm going to figure out what all the fuss is about, and then I'm going to make it simple. And it was the same exact eureka moment with poker. I was like, I really want to figure out what all this is, and then I'm going to write the book. So it's easy and approachable and accessible.
So walk me through. That's the initial precipice of delving in, like more than like dipping your toe. It sounds like you went in head first into this. And so now that you have these remedial books, as you call them, you're taking 45-minute one-way Uber rides to find books just to look at it, which I think is awesome. And then now you step into your first hand, your first game. Was it at the casino? Was it like with friends? How did that go? And then walk us through the next couple months until you start getting like really good and like book deals start happening.
Yeah. Well, I went with my roommate. He was he liked to play blackjack. It was his idea to go to the MGM. I remember, I think it was like my second or third day playing poker. So I kept coming back. And this guy, he turns to me and he goes, you played that hand horribly. And I said, how so? And he goes, well, for starters, I could see your cards. And then I was like, okay, there's a gap here, and point taken. And we actually talked through the hand, and he was right. I did play the hand very poorly. But it was, I would say probably the first week or so was just not getting it, like at all. And then what I did was I did order some books online, actually. I got a bunch of books. They didn't really help, but I found this chart online. It's very, it looks like hieroglyphics. Like it'll say like different color-coded squares, and it will say AJS. And you have to know that's ace jack suited, which means like ace and a jack of the same suit, meaning like clubs, spades, or diamonds. So it's in code, right?
Okay.
So it's this one little chart, and it's basically trying to explain which cards to play in which seat at the table.
Okay.
And so I use this chart to make my flashcards, my 180 flashcards with stickers. They're all color coded. What?
Do you still have the flashcards?
I do, but they're at home in LA. I do have them though. I do have them. So I made all these little flashcards, and it would say like AJS on one side, and then it would have a sticker on the other side, meaning what seat can you play it in, or is it call, fold, or raise, different symbols. And so I basically converted this chart to a flashcard set. And once I did that, it was eye-opening.
You should sell a flashcard set.
I know, I want to. What happened was, like when people who've been playing poker for years, like they think they know how to play, but they're losing players. They say, what's the best way to get better at poker? And I say the answer is fold. Because the truth is that you should be throwing away 80% of your hands.
Really?
And that 80% of your hands. That's and most people just kind of learn. That's a lot, right?
Sounds like
super exercise and discipline, focus, yes. And so most people, even if they know the hand rankings and betting strategies, they're playing too many hands.
Is it overconfidence? Is it hubris? Like, oh, I can make this happen. Like ego gets in the way kind of thing, or?
I think it's gambling. I think it's people want to like play cards. They want to hit like blackjack, you know, so they think, hey, this is a bad hand, but maybe I'll get lucky.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I think that's where it's fine, you know, because a lot of people are like, I didn't come here to fold for an hour.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's what you're going to have to do. And so once that's basically what that chart was. It's which cards to play, which cards to fold. And so once I started folding all of my hands for the most part, and then the few hands you play very few hands very aggressively. Then it was like, boom, I started to get results.
Incredible. Okay.
I also joined a kickball team of poker dealers. And so they taught
Say that again?
I also joined a kickball team of poker dealers in DC, and afterwards they would like drill me too. Like we'd go to like a bar afterwards.
Is that like a conflict of interest or no? It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. But they did tell me, because when I first started playing poker, I didn't know that you were supposed to tip the dealers, and they were like, "You're supposed to tip."
Kick it in. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Kick it in. Yeah, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't know that."
So you built this structure, and you learned more the kind of the system of what to do, what not to do, when to do it, how to do it. And so you said, you know, so how does it work that you start implementing this into real life? And so did you see success right away? Did you stick to your guns and stick to the system, and you found the system was good? Or did it take some tweaking both of your ego and like your mentality and of the system to get to like a point where you were winning? Like how quickly did you start winning? How quickly did you start losing? How much money did you make? How much money did it cost you? Like all that stuff in the first few weeks.
Yeah. I mean, I noticed a drastic shift, like within 3 weeks, I would say, in results.
The first 3 weeks, were you losing a lot or folding?
Yes. And I realized if I played for any extended period of time, I would lose. So what I would do is I would play for like 15 minutes. I would win one hand, and then I would just go home.
Profit? Or how does that work monetarily? Like in 15 minutes, would you generally make money, break even, lose money? How would that work?
Like if I won a hand, then I would leave because I knew that I wouldn't be able to hold on to it.
And what does that mean in terms of like average in the beginning if you won a hand?
I probably was swinging between $75.
Okay.
And then once I won my first poker tournament, which was a couple thousand, then I got a lot more swingy, because even though I was a better player, I was taking bigger risks, ones that were above both what I had budgeted for and what my skill level was.
Okay.
So, you know, the funny thing is, poker is all relative. Like I could say, hey, I won $1 million, but if I had to put down 999,000 to win the, you know, then it doesn't sound so cool, right? No. Like I would say one of my biggest proportionate wins was earlier this month. I entered a $40 tournament and I won it for about $7,000.
That's insane.
And it's really, really great because you only have $40 invested. So then it really feels and becomes a $7,000 win. It's
a 99.999999999% gain. Like, or in terms of like, just like you didn't put anything, almost hardly nothing in.
Right. So when you think about poker, you need to kind of, there's a lot of factors when you actually are trying to measure a win. There are two forms of poker: cash game poker, tournament poker. Cash games, it would kind of be like I'd win in tournaments and then I would try to play a cash game and then I'd lose it all. So, because I wasn't as good at that style. Tournaments are a little bit more aggressive. Cash games aren't as much. Cash games, like tournaments, are all about putting pressure on people.
Okay.
Cash games, you need to know more about bet sizing and strategy and being able to read what other people's hands are.
Here's a side question, and it's kind of somewhat on the topic, but I watch a lot of Joe Rogan, and he had a ton of people on his show. one guy that comes on his show is one of the biggest douchebags in the world, but he says that he makes a ton of money in poker. And I want to know if you've heard the name Dan Bilzerian.
Dan Bilzerian? I knew you were going to say it before. That's a
has he actually, like, is he a liar? Does he make money in poker? Because he said people think he's like a trust fund baby, but like he just says he won all of his money in poker.
You know, this guy, Doug Polk, who makes very good YouTube videos on poker strategy, he did like an analysis of Dan Bilzerian playing. Because you can like record your screen as you're playing if you play online, right? And he did this analysis of Dan Bilzerian, and he's like, "This is amateur mistakes. You know, these are this feels like your local guy that plays at the casino. This doesn't seem professional caliber."
Most likely, he probably didn't make. He said like 25 million one night, 50 million. Like he's probably not winning that type of money at the poker table.
Well, again, if he's putting that much down, then anyone can get lucky, you know. Okay. Like if you put down 50 million and or 25 million in a hand, you can double it to 50. The key is, can you do that over the course of 1,000 hands consistently?
Right.
That's where the luck starts to run dry. The skill starts to matter. I say in my book, I actually looked at whether poker is luck or skill, and studies. And there's a few different facts in there, but studies show the point at which skill surpasses luck is about 1,471 hands.
Wow.
So, which is like 20 hours of playing, give or take. So you can get lucky for 100 hands, 200 hands, 300 hands. It really takes about 1,500 hands for the skill to really matter.
That's incredible.
So anyway, yeah, it's really fascinating.
It almost doesn't make sense. Like you feel like skill usually shows itself pretty immediately in anything, whether it's sports, whether it's business, whether it's relationships, whether it's self-work. Like there's so many things where skill shines immediately. And to go 20 hours, 1,500 hands, that sounds like a marathon in my mind. That's a long time.
You know, it's funny because when you're in the poker world, like an average daily, nothing special, like a Tuesday poker tournament is going to take 7 hours. And like a lot of people who are like outside of the poker world are like, 7 hours of playing that's so long. But then when you're in the poker world, you're like, yeah, you play the tournament, and then afterwards you go play the cash game, and you're like 12, you get there at noon and you leave at 3 a.m.
That's right. The casinos, the ones in person, have figured out pumping in the oxygen and keeping you at the tables, and like they know that you're going to be there for at least half the day, literally.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think my record is over 30 hours. Straight. Do
you drink any alcohol or no?
I don't drink alcohol anymore. I used to. But I never really noticed that significant of a change either way.
Okay.
But I don't anymore.
I'm even just thinking of like
various things and how what
at the table or while you're playing. Did you ever drink?
Yeah, I used to.
Okay.
But I used to just like but now I'm like trying to. I mean, I had like a glass of wine last night, but I'm trying to like be more clean living now.
I got you. I just didn't know if there was a noticeable discernment between like, having alcohol infused playing versus no alcohol. Like, was there a big difference between like your sharpness, or even like, some people get a little bit loose when they drink. So like you start making decisions that like maybe you go big when you shouldn't, or maybe you talk more smack, like stuff like that.
I think the only thing, and I can only speak from a personal experience and also what I've seen, is it helps how people perceive you. So if you are a really good poker player who just has these things memorized, you're going to play well when you're drinking, but people are going to assume because you're drinking that you're playing poorly.
Which might be a good thing. They underestimate you. Yeah.
Exactly. They underestimate you. They think like, like I've kind of like, you can like play up to it a little bit. Like you can pretend that you're more drunk than you actually are. It's all called table image in poker, which is how people see you and how people perceive you. And so if you want people to think, you probably don't want people to think that you're a professional poker player who's written a book. It's bad for your table image. Because then people don't want to really play hands against you. They're going to be more cautious, right? Or if they are playing hands against you, then they're going to try to like really, prove something.
Yeah, like they're going to come at you for sure.
They're going to come at you. Yeah, it depends on the person, right? So I've seen it where like people will almost like a hustle. You know what I mean? Where they'll have like a bunch of drinks. Some people who can like really hold their liquor very well. And then they act like, hey, I'm just getting lucky when
they're sharks. Yeah.
They're sharks. Exactly. When they are absolute total sharks.
Talk to me. We had this phone call and there was a lot of interesting kind of dynamics about, like people's style of play at the table. Like you have people that are super aggressive. You have people that are super analytical. You have people that are quiet, that show no emotion. You have people that are mathematical, like we talked about. You have people that are like psychological. Like I feel like I would read people and like try to look at people and see what's going on and pick stuff up if I could, and like intuitively like kind of feel what's happening. So where do you land in that spectrum, and like what types of people are actually at the tables that are like really good at poker? Like how do they operate? They're all over the spectrum from math people to like, people skills people. Like talk about that.
That's a great question. It's funny because when I first started, I had no understanding of body language. And even though I was more of like an emotional type person, I didn't know how to interpret anything. Like even if someone was giving off clues or a tell, I wouldn't be able to utilize that in any way. So I just kind of liked the centering of, let me get this right, let me sequence, let me systematize. So I started off more in like, I memorized all these percentages, the math in that. And then as time went on, then once I was able to not use so much headspace around that, I was able to kind of go to the next level, the next layer, and start thinking about not just my hand and how do I get it right, but what do they got? Because it takes time, because there's so many different factors you're plugging in. So the better I got at poker, I would say the more I was able to focus on other people's body language, tells, reads, actions. One of my favorite poker stories, this is like so cool, is there's this woman, her name is Annette Oberstadt. She now has like a makeup YouTube channel, but she's the youngest person ever to win a World Series of Poker bracelet. It's like their trophy thing. She's like 18. I think she's Norwegian. She played an online poker tournament blind. So she put tape over her cards so she couldn't see her hands, and she won first place. And what she did, and this is online where you can't see people's faces. Like it's literally just like a chair and like you're screening, right? And what she did is she said she wanted to prove a point about paying attention to the other players. And so she would, she'd never act first in a hand. She'd always wait until she could see what other people were doing. And she would base her decisions off of their timing and off of how they would size. And she won. And so, I mean, she's like one of the best poker players ever, but it just goes to show that you can really, really develop any feature in poker to that much of a degree.
So she was a wizard and a genius when it came to human behavior and predictability.
She was a wizard and a genius when it came to human behavior.
It's incredible.
It's incredible, right?
Yeah. Have you actually met her or just heard about her through reading?
No, I think I might have walked by her once at the World Series of Poker. Yeah. But I haven't met her. I watch her makeup YouTube channel though. She like does tutorials.
It's so funny. So she's got a side thing that she does. So
yeah, I think she's kind of like gone off she used to be in all the big poker shows playing against all the guys. And now I think she's diversified.
Hey, you got to. That's the smart way to live, right? Stop trading time for money and have a few revenue streams coming in. So, so I feel like from what I've seen and heard, most people that play poker have a hard go. It's like anything else. Like it's like the small percentage of the top can make a career of it or make a lot of money with it. So are there journeymen, journeywomen, poker players that can make, 60, 70, 80 grand a year, kind of like a normal kind of like job? Or is it like hit or miss, like where you're always broke and like you're a degenerate and like, or you're making a shit ton of money? Like, is there a middle ground for like the journey person?
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely 100%.
What does that look like?
What do you mean, what does it look like?
Like as far as like, you know, an income that they could kind of predictably rely on and like quality of life, like are they able to like live a pretty decent life, or is it always like they're scared where the next like you know, winning is coming from?
I had a friend who used to write for some of the poker magazines, and he interviewed poker players in Los Angeles, like professional poker players who just play like the cash games at the tournaments, just like your nightly Thursday night game, right? Who are winning players, and how much they make. And they make between, if you're a winning player, 80 to 120,000 a year.
Okay. So like a pretty decent job for someone, pretty decent income. You could actually, sounds like there's a good group of people that can do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, poker, it's like chess, where it's a skill game and it just gets harder and harder and harder and harder and harder until eventually it's like completely computerized. You know, poker is not as easy as it was 15 years ago.
Really?
Not as easy, not at all. It's like a completely different game.
What changed?
One, computers that could calculate things, and two, so much information online.
Okay.
Like, you know, it's funny. A professional poker player, he told me this, and it always stuck with me. He said, the hardest game in the world, the hardest game to beat, he said, is playing online 50-cent, $1 stakes.
Really?
And I said, really? And he was playing like a 2-5, which is like buying in for $500 to $1,000 a night for starters. And he'd been doing this for years.
Wow.
Right? And the reason why, he said, is because when you play, the people that are playing for like quarters and dollars there, they're largely young internet whiz kids who don't have, you know, 500 to kind of gamble at the casino, but they've got, you know, their $100 and they're taking it really seriously, and they're watching all the YouTube videos and doing all the tutorials and reading all the books, and there's all these training websites that quiz you, and those are the hardest games to beat.
Wow. The competition sounds pretty heavy right there.
It is. It is. But there's also so much human nature that gets in the way. Like, you know, if I were to coach you, Jesse, like I could do, like I do coach, right? For like 3 sessions, you know, I could teach you a pretty good formula how to beat the game. And I would feel very confident after about like 3 hours that I could get you with more knowledge and better than the average poker player at the casino. If you actually stick to the advice, that's the struggle of human nature.
Yep.
Poker is
advice
very
business. I'm in the advice business. I'm a wealth planner, and I make money on solely advising clients.
Right. Yeah. And I bet you have confidence that if they did exactly what you tell them to do, they would be successful.
When I ask them to do it. Yeah.
It's easier said than done.
Yeah.
Even my own self. I mean, I wrote a book on poker advice. Sometimes I'll play funky cards because I feel like it, you know. I'm not perfect. So there's different ideas on how to measure a poker player. One of the ways I've heard of it is saying whoever can make the least mistakes.
Makes sense. Yeah. That's that. I mean, a lot of parallels between what you do and what I do. Like that my job is to help my clients not only like keep and make more money, but show them how to make the least amount of mistakes so they don't, you know, lose all their money. It's incredible how that parallels. So
poker's like a microcosm for life. And, you know, I started playing poker back when I was like single, right? And like a young girl, and all my friends were in the dating scene. And you find out a lot fast, including someone's relationship with money.
How about that?
You know, like how they handle a win, a loss, where are they at? What's their status? Like, you know, how do they tip? Like you'll find out a whole lot more about that. You'll find out more about, you know, how compassionate they are to other people. Are they a good loser, a bad loser? all these different things come out on the poker table that you wouldn't necessarily see when you're trying to meet someone for coffee.
So yeah, it's very telling. It sounds like, and you can see a lot about people's interpersonal skills, their relationship with things.
Yes.
It's really interesting. You can use it as like a litmus test to really gauge where people are. That's awesome.
And I highly recommend it. No one looks good at 4 a.m. So you're like sitting at a poker table with someone for like 12 hours. You're no longer going to be like, wow, you like vanilla ice cream? I like vanilla ice cream. Oh my gosh, you're so, and like all the fake laughing. It's like you kind of reach a point where you're just like chilled out.
A base carnal level. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. You can just kind of like let go a little bit.
So I want to talk about your book in a few moments, but how often, especially now with COVID, and how have you pivoted in terms of like frequency of playing? Are you playing once a week if you want? Can you play as much as you want? I guess with online you might be able to, but how does that look for you? Like how you're operating now?
I play every day. COVID's been great for me in terms of online tournaments. I had one of my biggest months. I won that $40 buy-in tournament. It was like 6,000 and change. And then I entered a $100 tournament a few days ago. And I got third place for 7,919.
Very cool.
And then like a few in between. So but you couldn't do that in a live setting.
Really?
The only reason why I was able to have such a good ROI is because those tournaments, they're like a Tuesday night, Thursday night, whatever. There's 1,000 people online that you're playing against.
More money.
So everyone pulls in like $40. You have this massive prize pool, and you didn't even have this ecosystem of people pooling money together to make like their own online casinos pre-COVID. There's like some unregulated sites, and I'll play on like some of the poker sites too as well. And there are regulated ones now that I'm in Mexico I can play on. It's more complicated in America, but it was like there's this side economy that emerged out of COVID of people playing. They play on like play money apps, right? Like for free poker chips.
Yeah.
And they all Venmo each other, so it's for real money. And then the idea, it's amazing how organized it is. The idea was like, hey, you got your like home game of your like 5 friends. Well, let's unionize with this guy's 5 friends and this guy's 5 friends. And then before you know it, you're able to have a tournament of 1,215 people.
Amazing. And is it like the honor system? Like, because that seems like there's a layer of insecurity with, oh yeah, I'll just Venmo you the money. Like if someone decided to go off the grid and screw someone, never play poker again with other people, they could just like dip out.
Yeah, you got to be careful. It's all through like agents who work on behalf of the club. I trust my agent. I think he's a good guy, but there's a degree of risk that you don't have with the casino. But I do think, you just don't have as big, like if you play a daily tournament at a casino for like $120 and you win first place, you might make 1,000 if they don't do a deal.
No way.
And that's it, as opposed to making 5 times that.
That's crazy.
But it's because casinos, like, they got to keep the lights on. They got to pay for the employees. They have so many more expenses.
They got to keep
that they're taking out. They're taking out a lot more of the money. So myself, I'm a much better tournament player than I am a cash game player.
Yep.
So for me, I've really enjoyed all these online tournaments because if you try playing them in a live setting, you're just not going to get the same ROI.
That's incredible. It's interesting to see some of the beautiful things that have come out of COVID and all these things that people are able to pivot to and they're happier with, honestly.
Absolutely. And also at a casino, because their expenses are so high, the lowest buy-in games are expensive. Like in DC, the lowest buy-in was $100. In LA, it's $40. And they're almost like playing slot machine games because the casino is going to take $7 out of every pot. And when you're playing $40, good luck. You might as well play roulette. Yeah. But when you play online, you can play for 10, 20 cent buying, like a blind level. So you can like play for $20 and you can really, really grind it up. You're not going to be having to put all of your, like, let's say you have like $300, like this is your poker budget. You're not going to have to put that all on the table. And if you get unlucky in one hand, well then boom, you're out. Instead, you can like keep buying it for $20 and eventually you'll hit that over 1,000 hands, right? And eventually your skill will have you win. So online, there's this emergence of micro stakes as well.
Nice. So it's more of an appeal for people to kind of get in versus, you said, laying that $300 down and you're in for that.
I highly would recommend starting online if you're just starting at poker.
Very cool. So talk about the book. So what was the muse for the book? What's the content of the book? And what has the book done for you and like your personal life?
Sure. So the book's called A Girl's Guide to Poker. And it was funny because once I came out with it, everyone, which is fine, they started saying it's a woman's poker book. And that was never even on my radar when I wrote it. When I came up with the title, it was more about writing it in my own voice. And it was about communicating these ideas in a way that was like my publisher. The reason why I went with that publisher, because there's two publishers that wanted the book. They said, you're like the Bridget Jones of poker. And it was kind of just that sense of, I'm talking about these events, I'm talking about these strategies in a way that's very true to me.
Yep.
And I wanted to create the poker book that I never had. I wanted it to be all the tips, tricks, the shortcuts. I say in my book, poker is not like running. If you run every day, you will get better at running. You can play poker every day and you can still be a losing player. So it's kind of like train smarter, not harder. Yeah. And it was like all the simplest tips, tricks that I could think of. There are a few stories, but it's mostly a how-to book.
Utilitarian.
Yeah. And then the last thing I would say on it is it's a reference book. When I was reading one of the For Dummies books as like inspiration, I really liked it. They said that the For Dummies series, the book was very difficult, by the way, to understand, but I liked it in the intro. They said, it's not necessarily meant to be read in order. You can just skip to the chapters that are relevant to you.
Nice.
And yeah, nice, right? And I loved that idea. And so I brought that to my own poker book. I mean, of course, I hope that you read it cover to cover, because if you don't, then you're going to miss all the cheesy jokes. It's designed that way. Like most of the chapters are just a few pages. It's kind of like mini chapters. I've got some quizzes in there. So if you just want to like hop around, like a beach read, a plane read, or if you're going to go to the casino and you're like, hey, someone mentioned like probabilities, let me just quickly pull that page up, or whatever it is. I like that you can hop around in the book and you can basically open to any page at random and jump right in.
How long did it take you to write the book from start to finish, from when you actually first put, the first letter down on the page?
I signed the book deal in May, started writing like June, and I finished somewhere around October.
Okay. So you got after it.
I did. And I was doing some like part-time, like remote political copywriting and things for organizations. But I was pretty much able to write the book full time.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I was able to just kind of crank it out. How
many words or pages? Because I'm on my first book right now. I'm about 60%.
Oh.
Yeah. And it's been an incredible journey, but there'll be periods where I don't touch it for like weeks at a time and focus on other things. So just the size of the book itself, like words, pages, hardcover, softcover, what's it look like?
I believe it was 42,000 words.
Okay.
I was the same. I would have like a week or two off and then like a week or two of like binge writing. Kind of worked for me, worked for my style. What really made the difference is I made this like Excel spreadsheet of like a rough outline. I would say that when I started it, I knew like 2/3. I didn't have all the chapters fleshed out, but I'd have a rough outline.
Yeah.
And because my contract, I had to hit 40,000 words.
Okay.
I had one column where I would estimate my word count. Like, I think this chapter is going to be 800 words. And then the other column would be actual.
Okay.
And it would tally it. And so then I would kind of hit it.
Beautiful. Nice. You have to have a little guide for sure.
Yeah.
What has it done for you? What has the book been able to do in terms of your brand? People connecting with you, because it's, obviously you do coaching. So I'm sure that's a really good, probably the best business card you could have, or best kind of someone giving you a testimonial is having that book and then being a coach and say, hey, listen, I'm an author. I've lived this life. I can show you how to do it too. So what's some of the doors that it's opened for you by being an author?
Number one, you have to say clients. It's definitely, it's helped. And it's got, I now work with this organization, Poker Power, HER. I teach classes through them multiple times a week as well. And they found me through my book. My ultimate mission in life would be able to do my own how-to book series. And you could do a Girl's Guide to Poker, a Girl's Guide to Politics, a Girl's Guide to History. Kind of the same idea of taking complicated textbook level stuff and making it simple, fun, feminine. I really, really want to move past that female means light. Some people thought women's poker book means that it's not as good, like girl push-ups as opposed to regular push-ups. And I want this idea that you can talk about anything and everything, and you can talk about smart subjects, and it's not conflicting for that to be feminine. You can talk about smart subjects in a confidently, unapologetically female voice.
It's beautiful. I've also been called to, I do courses for different stuff around financial literacy and planning and all these things. And one of them that I'm working on now is, and I'm doing some target market research, is, as a woman, what do you want to know about financial planning and investing? What's important to you? Because the system's been set up for so long for men to handle finances, and it's very archaic, but it's just kind of how it is, where the husband or the significant other will handle the finances. And so I'm really delving into a completely underserved market that's completely overpowered. They're definitely very highly successful people. They're very, get after it kind of people, and they want the knowledge. So I definitely see a huge market there for sure.
Absolutely. I think it's something like 80% of consumer decisions are made by women. I know that women buy 60% of cars, or 62%, something like that, of cars. So there's a whole market, but I think there needs to be a shift in that women trying to be like men.
Yep.
Because there's this idea that the male way is the better way, the right way, as opposed to whether it's poker or planning or, the best way for you might be not necessarily the male model.
Right. No, I think just, if you're smart, you're a good human being, and you want to do good in the world, doesn't matter if you're a guy or a girl, you can do beautiful things either way. So when you're not playing poker, you're not an author, you're not doing all these things that you do, what keeps you happy? What are some of the things that you like to get into? And especially maybe even not even in a COVID world, but what are some things, some of your hobbies, your passions? What do you want to do before you die?
Before I die? Oh gosh. Everything. I am a major astrology nerd. I would probably say.
Talk about this. Yes. Heck yes.
It's I will watch hour and a half videos on uncovering the stars and what they mean. If anyone's an astrology buff, to simplify my whole interest in poker and systems and all this stuff, I have a Virgo moon. So for people that understand astrology, they'll know what that means. Oh yeah, she's a Virgo moon. Thus the need to organize. And Virgo moon's all about understanding and interest in systems. And astrology is a system for personalities, which I guess also would relate to poker and would make sense. For sure. Why I like both.
When you say Virgo moon, is that because you the month and the day that you were born is the Virgo, but then also the moon is the time of day you were born? Or is moon...
So when you were, it's a great question. Sorry, I jumped too much in the weeds.
No, it's great.
When you're born, there's a picture, a snapshot of the sky. Wherever the sun is your sun sign. So if you're like, hey, I'm a Pisces, hey, I'm a Taurus, that's because the sun was in the constellation of Taurus. Beautiful. At the same time, the moon was in a constellation and Mars is in a constellation. So I'm a Pisces sun with a Virgo moon.
How does one find that snapshot? Like, so I know that I was born December 29th, 1981 at like 9:20 in the morning.
Excellent. So you got your time of birth. There are websites. I usually use like Cafe Astrology. There's a couple though. They all work. And you like plug in your time, date, place of birth.
Yep.
It's funny. So I teach women's poker classes and I'm teaching one on Monday. And they said afterwards, they're like, can we just do an astrology reading session?
It's so fascinating. We talked about this. I've been getting into this over the last like year and a half or so where I'm just learning more about it. And it's interesting how it's playing out, especially being in the dating world too. It seems to be very important a lot of times. So,
well, I mean, Capricorn, obviously I haven't seen your full chart. If I saw your full chart, then I could give you like a better explanation. Capricorn, great sign, by the way, great sign. Already like super points, super awesome. It's interesting because Capricorn, it's the sign of the goat, right? It's this billy goat that's like climbing up the mountain and it's keeping on going. It's keeping on going, right? It's a good, hardworking sign. Though I should say it's a hardworking sign in positions of authority or positions entrepreneurial. It's not a worker. It doesn't work for others.
Don't I know?
Yeah, right. But in some iterations of astrology, it's symbolized by the sea goat. So Capricorns, even though they're this hardworking billy goat, they secretly have a romantic, poetic side.
That's me.
Yeah.
I'm the warrior poet.
Well, you're fortunate because you're December 29th. So you're like right smack in the middle and also right smack in the middle. So yeah. And then what would happen is if I were to like look at your other planets, your Capricorn's your identity. Okay. Your sun sign is your identity, as I have all this sun blaring. The sun sign is the identity. So that's what you want in life. All right. Just basic, without seeing the rest of your chart, generic Capricorn reading. You want to be successful. Okay.
Yeah.
And you kind of want to have a certain degree. I don't know if control is the right word, but like, I would say like kind of authority in your space. It's the sign of the father, you want, and maybe with like a little touch of like magic, right? Because it's that's where the kind of enchanted sea goat comes in. Wherever your moon sign is where your emotions are. That's what you need. Some people, what they want and what they need are the same thing. Some people, they're completely different. Right?
Wow.
And yeah, it's cool, right? And so like if my chart's a very good example because all my stuff is like very clear. I'm a Pisces sun. So my sun sign, if someone asks, what's your sign? I say I'm a Pisces. That means that I want to be like creative, interested in causes, writer, dreamer, emotions, sensitive, blah, blah, blah. I'm a Pisces. Okay. That's what I want is I want to be this person that's engaged in nonprofits. I want to be writing. It's the sign of the dreamer and emotional, right? What I need is intense understanding, systematization, structure. So they're opposite signs. What I want is, hey, world without structure, let's change the world.
I feel like I'm innately the same without knowing. Like I know that there's a schism in my life and it's like, I'm over here, but I'm also over here emotionally. So I'm definitely excited to figure that out for sure.
Yeah. We can do charting and then you'll have signs for your relationships too. Again, they may buff up a part of your personality. Or they may be like, hey, I'm totally this way in my regular life. And then when I'm in relationships, I'm like totally the other way.
Yeah.
So my boyfriend, his sun and moon are opposite like mine, which means that some of your personality is yes, yes, yes. And other parts, no, no, no. And it means that what you want is the opposite of what you need, but it's opposites on the same spectrum.
Got it. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm going to figure it out. We'll have to have more conversation offline about that.
Let's talk about sorry. I could literally like go into it forever. I'm sure you have a really cool chart.
We could have like a whole nother episode just on that, honestly, and all the stuff that I'm into, from like sacred plant medicines to meditation to breath work. Like I'm into that whole space, and so that's beautiful. But so as far as just kind of looking forward to, you said the future and like what you want to do everything. Are there just a couple things that you're looking to get done in 2020, or have you kind of just washed your hands with 2020 and looking forward past that?
In 2020, in the immediate future, I've really been enjoying teaching poker clients, teaching poker classes. I do it for corporations as well now. And I'd like to kind of continue to build out my Rolodex here of like organizations, people. So I hope to kind of do that with more people, hope to coach and take on more clients. But my ultimate goals, I see, as much as I love poker, I say I'm a writer first, a poker player second. Even though I've had success in poker, I've had more success as a writer. And I say that the way, again, writer first, poker player second, there are bajillionaire poker players and they have poker books. But those books are not written by writers. And it's not communication first.
Yep.
So my dreams, my goals would be to continue and also go back to writing. I do ultimately and eventually hope to return to politics, but I think right now as with everything being so dynamic, I'm kind of more in a space of intake, right? Rather than being like, saying what to do. And I guess the last thing on that note, as someone who worked as a newsletter writer in a very, very densely complicated space, and my real focus was on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And it wasn't about me saying like, hey, here are the solutions. But the idea is that if we all got the same facts, then maybe we can figure something out.
So amazing that you've been able to put all this together. And as far as, everything that you're doing, it sounds like you're living the life the way that you want to, and you're experiencing things and you're not living a status quo kind of life, which I think is beautiful. So I love to hear how the journey continues and maybe get you on another podcast and talk about some other stuff. So she's the amazing, mighty, and powerful Amanda. I'm Jesse T. Be sure to catch us on next week's episode of The Jesse T Show.